are live, and it has never been better to be standing here on the turf at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Pella Windows Postgame Show. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Adams. This is Jeff Sintel. We have got a lot, and I do mean a lot of business to tell you about over the next few minutes. Let's see everything we got to chronicle. We've got to chronicle what probably is the most interesting Kirby Smart press conference that we've ever heard. We'll talk about that. We will count all the ways in which Georgia has now owned the East for a third consecutive year. You better believe we're all over that. Making Florida sad, Auburn sad on the same day. Jeff, this is pretty good times. I got to tell you, if this is what living is, I can get used to this. Georgia wins 21-14. Welcome into the Pella Windows Postgame Show. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Jeff Sintel. Just over my shoulder, you see the score. Rookie move by Jordan-Hare Stadium personnel to keep this score flashing, but 21-14 will be burned into their brain forever. Dogs come here and get a big win. How you doing?
Brandon, you good? You got your opening monologue?
Oh, I'm long from done. I'm far from done.
So let's do two things. Number one, let's not bury our lead here. Let's do a sight check, find out our six. Where's the water hoses at, Brandon? Where are the water hoses?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shades of 1986. At some point in time, we do expect to get pelted by water hoses and run for our life. But you know what? My mellow will not be harsh tonight.
So, folks, we're just going to jump right into it. We don't want to bury our lead anymore. When Brandon says the most interesting press conference of the Kirby Smart era, he wasn't kidding. And, you know, he teased it. So it might be sponsored by your favorite soap company.
Yeah, so I don't condone the language Kirby Smart used tonight, but I love it.
No.
But I love it.
No. So someone asked him a question which drew out what he told the team afterward. Someone is asking him, Kirby, did you acknowledge Georgia won the SEC East Division tonight? That's another lead story for our post-game broadcast. But someone asked him if he addressed the SEC East. And Kirby got to finally the point where he said no. But I said, how about them effing dogs?
And he didn't say effing. He said the whole thing all the way out. And you know what? I think it was appropriate because, listen, I think what Kirby means there in that spot is, listen, and because Connor asked a really good question to a Kirby during the press conference, it kind of leads into the whole how about them effing dogs moment where, you know.
Is that a T-shirt? Is that already a T-shirt? Is that already a T-shirt, folks? Would you buy that T-shirt somewhere?
Listen, I think you may see that on some backs here or some chests here pretty soon. But Connor asked a good question. He said, do you guys still even celebrate the East, given the fact that you're obviously trying, and Connor didn't say this out loud, but he meant you're obviously trying to win a national championship. Do you even still celebrate the East? And Kirby gave a great answer to this question. He said, yes, we celebrate the East, but he went further than that. He went further than that. He said, we also celebrate the fact that we came into Auburn and beat a big rival, and I'm paraphrasing his words, but beat a big rival in their own stadium. And at that moment in time, now listen, I'm an erudite member of the media, so I have to stand still and be poised and professional in the press conference. But there's a part of me that wants to shout amen, because that's exactly what I think the appropriate answer here is supposed to be. That along the way towards winning a national championship, which Georgia may very well do, along the way towards making the college football playoff, which Georgia obviously took another step towards tonight, along the way towards being back in the SEC championship game, which Georgia has clinched its berth in, there is also something to be said for the Deep South's oldest rivalry and feeding it to Auburn tonight in a way that they were not enjoying for a good portion of this game. And don't tell me about comeback, and don't tell me about anything like that. All I know is that scoreboard right there says the good guys won. And for Kirby Smart, so when you get into the whole how about them, blanking dogs moment, I think that's what this is all about is Kirby because and this is where being a graduate of the school matters. I promise we'll get to your comments in a moment. This is where being an alumnus of UGA matters. You know the history of this game. There are a lot of people you could pull from, wherever that they wouldn't see this anything other than a challenging game along the way towards trying to earn some sort of postseason berth. But Kirby can remember when, he can tell you the stories of the 96 game where you went to overtime here, the 82 game. I'm sure he grew up hearing about that with the look at the sugar falling from the sky. Kirby knows this history, and he knows that he added to this history tonight, and the players that he's brought here to UGA added to this history. So for him to say what he said, the how about them blanking dogs, I think this whole deal is, for tonight, beating Auburn's what to be happy about, because beating Auburn feels pretty good.
So first of all, I'm floored by you using the word erudite member of the media. I don't know if that might be a Dog Nation post-game press conference first, but, we try to be entertaining, informative, and I'm just going to share a little story. I know Brandon hates it when I do this, but, we're walking out of the press conference after the effing happened, and then eruditeness went out the way for Brandon, and then he's like, that's my coach. That's my coach, and that is a happy Brandon Adams tonight.
It is. Listen, like I said, I'm family friendly. I use.
That's my effing coach, right?
No, I didn't. But you know what? If he wants to flex a little bit, he's earned the right to do that. And, you know, I said on Dog Nation Daily this week, though, the rant that Ed Orgeron was caught giving in the locker room. I said last week it would not surprise me at all. In fact, I believe that is a sanction leak. I believe Ed Orgeron wanted the people to know that, you know what, he's ready to take it to Alabama. And you know what? I believe that Kirby Smart was ready tonight to know that he's happy about beating Gus Malzahn. I think these two guys have what competitors in sports should have. You ought to have a rivalry. With the guys you're coaching against, the guys you're playing against, you ought to have a rivalry. They've got one. Kirby did kind of let it be known that Gus Malzahn calling a timeout before the end of the half probably did set up Georgia to score a touchdown. Kirby doesn't have to say that, but you know what? Letting Malzahn squirm a little bit and letting that quote pop up in some Alabama media, I don't think Kirby minds that thing showing up in some local media coverage of how Auburn lost this game. And the whole how about them effing dogs, you know, if it's not, and that's the last time I'm going to say that, if it's not Auburn, obviously that phrase doesn't mean quite as much. But I think Kirby likes beating up on Auburn.
Well, I mean, here the win streak or the win stretch now for Georgia goes 12 out of 15 against Auburn. But let's look at the big bullet points out of this victory. Number one, that SEC West mojo, check. Number two, it was that, what about Georgia getting up against Alabama, losing it, getting up against Alabama again, losing it. Georgia getting up against Auburn against a very tough defense, holding on this time. And I think that says quite a lot about where this program's heading. Another funny moment, Brandon, from the press conference tonight was, I don't know if you guys saw it. I don't know if the CBS broadcast caught it, but after Trayvon Walker, and folks, that was a gushing Kirby Smart about Trayvon Walker in the post-game press conference tonight. But after he made that dog crap, kicking the dog crap out of the Auburn offense, sack, he jogs and he rushes over the Georgia sideline. Kirby Smart attempts a chest bump with Trayvon Walker. And what happens there is what anybody, most normal human beings or any even former SEC athletes try to chest bump Trayvon Walker. Kirby ended up on his fanny, and someone asked him in the post-game presser, would you do that again? Did you rethink it? And he said, heck no, he would do that every time when Trayvon Walker makes a play like that.
All right, we're going to get some comments here on your Pella Windows Postgame Show. We're down on the field here at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Georgia wins 21-14. We'll keep talking about that on Facebook, YouTube, and everything else. Let's get a few of these comments. Some of these I can't even read. Justin Sisk says, just sit back and enjoy these times. And Justin, I 1,000,000% agree with you on this. You know, there is a lot you could say about maybe too many threes and out for the Georgia offense, or, hey, you know, Auburn kind of makes a comeback here. Nobody ever said this game was going to be easy. In fact, all week long here on Dog Nation Daily, I said precisely the opposite. This game was going to be incredibly tough, incredibly difficult. And you know what? For a full 60 minutes, that's exactly what happened. The idea that Georgia's going to get up 14 and then get up 21, that Auburn was going to wave the white flag of surrender, on this point I'll be serious. I didn't expect Auburn to fold up there in that point in time, and they came back very much the way that I expected them to, because they are really, really tough to beat in the stadium. We'll find that out when Alabama comes here in a couple of weeks as well. They're just really, really tough to beat in this stadium, and yet Georgia went out and did it. So I got nothing but happiness going on tonight about winning the East again, owning the East, as we like to say around here, about making Florida sad, about beating up on Auburn. I thought this was a great night for the Georgia program in a time in which, you know, we talked to J.R. Reed tonight, and he kind of downplayed the idea this was the most complete game that Georgia's played to this point in the season. But for me, it was. I understand J.R. wants to have a high standard, wants to keep pushing his team to be better, and I get as a leader of this team, he wants to obviously speak to a different standard. But, you know, I'm a little bit more allowed to kind of speak freely in all this. And I thought this was the most complete game that Georgia's played tonight. Not a perfect game. This may not end up being a perfect team. But you don't have to have a perfect team to have a perfect finish. And Georgia is still alive for a perfect finish to this 2019 season.
Well, I mean, I just look at the games you play, and it's not just what you do, the clean game offensively. I look at it against the opponent, the man in front of you. I thought Andrew Thomas had a very poignant post-game interview tonight where he said that's the best defensive line in the country, and that's the best front seven in the country. And for Georgia to do that, someone asked Kirby Smart after the game about the run game and how they went against that Auburn defensive line. Well, he stopped for a moment, checked the stat sheet, and saw that Georgia ran for 141 yards on 36 carries, and he thought that was a good job well done, or at least a satisfactory job well done to go in there and get Auburn. And, you know, when I say that about opponents and how tough it was, I mean, Georgia, let's look at the big things out of this win. Now I feel Georgia's in the conversation where, is Georgia the number 3 team in the country with now those 3 pretty top 15 wins with one on a neutral site with one in an opposing opponent's friendly confines here at Jordan Stadium. I mean, folks, when the Dog Nation Suburban was rolling down I-85 today, we made it pretty simple. Connor jumped in, Brandon jumped in, and we said 10-9, 45-44, 3-2 in 6 overtimes. You leave this place with a dub, and that is a great night to be a Georgia Bulldog.
David Larson in our Facebook comment section says, think about what Muntz would say. Look at the sugar falling out of the sky. And, Jeff, it is hard not to be here, as David points out on Facebook. It's hard not to be here and think about those great moments. Now, there are also some very disappointing moments here in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That's part of a rivalry. You're going to have the good and the bad. But when you think about what Georgia did tonight, adding to the lore of this rivalry to go along with 82 and 86 and 96 and 2002, which I was lucky enough to be here for, this was another chapter to that, and the great calls of Larry Munson, the great moments in Georgia history. When you stand here on this very significant soil that has contributed so much to the SEC's history, it's very difficult not to think about that.
It is, and you know what it harkens back to, guys, is, Brandon, you're going to hate me to say this probably. Might be another dirty word here on the Pella Postgame Show, but Brandon, someone invoked the Florida Gators in a good way tonight for Georgia's victory. That's the first time that any team in the SEC East has won 3 consecutive division titles since those mighty Gators in the 90s. And that, folks, is a great comparison to put in the cap, to put in the feather for Georgia's 2019 team already. And I thought, matter-of-factly, everybody was sitting there going, yeah, well, great game, yada, yada, yada. I thought, this is another Brandon, that's my coach moment there. He quickly as he could tried to turn the page to Texas A&M next week.
Yeah, listen, it's a difficult stretch of games for Georgia. I think A&M next week is a tough game. And I'm not just coach speak when I say that. I think it is a tough game for Georgia next Saturday against Texas A&M. However, the one thing that we have the luxury of doing that Kirby Smart doesn't is we can celebrate a little bit. I get how Kirby has got to start getting his team healthy and ready for A&M next Saturday. Luckily, all we get to do is enjoy this. We're going to take over Gus Malzahn's Waffle House. We're going to claim it on behalf of the great state of Georgia. That's all going down tonight. I hope you're ready for it. I hope you're ready. There's a chance I may roll Toomer's Corner tonight.
Ready to get roll Toomer.
Tonight was the first time that
Auburn
was scoreless going into the fourth quarter.
So the first time in the Malzahn era that Auburn was scoreless going in the fourth quarter. Good note there from Connor Riley. Speaking of that, let me take care of business here just a little bit. This, of course, is the Pella Window Postgame Show. We're live on the field here at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's brought to you by our friends at Pella Window and Door of Georgia, and they can help equip your house with energy-efficient windows and doors. And that's important this time of year. When it's cold outside, you get the heat on. That heat escapes through the crevices in your windows or through the part of your door there. You don't want that to happen. You want to keep that energy inside your house. So installing energy-efficient windows and doors from Pella Window and Door of Georgia could save you money, but you got to reach out and get in touch with them. They got a couple different ways here. PellaSoutheast.us, that's a website you can use, PellaSoutheast.us, or give them a call at the Dunwoody Showroom at 404-445-2979. That's 404-445-2979. Pella Window and Door of Georgia, they're viewed to be the best. All right, let's get a few more comments here. I've obviously got a lot more to say, but I want to give people a chance to kind of weigh in and say what they want to say there as well. Keegan Rogers says, great win tonight for the Dogs. Don't think we'll face a tougher defense along the way. And, Kirby Smart was obviously very complimentary of the Auburn defense after the game. I had a chance to overhear some of the things that some of the NFL scouts that were in attendance were saying. They were also quite complimentary of this Auburn secondary, some of the plays made in space. On opportunities where I thought that Jake Fromm made a pretty good read to throw the ball, I thought the Georgia receiver gave himself a chance to catch the ball. There were a few times tonight where I just thought Auburn made a play on a would-be pass. And I think in certain moments like that, you just turn around and you sort of shake the guy's hand and you go back and you try to play again and try to get something the next play. I really thought that Auburn had a pretty good defensive game plan against Georgia. I think they did the best they could. I thought that Georgia grinding out the rushing yards that it did to the tune of a little more than, about 4 yards a carry on the ground tonight. I thought that nearly 160 on the ground, I believe. I just thought it was a tough, hard-fought game, virtually exactly the way that most of us expected to be. I think that Georgia should be commended for coming out victorious. And I think that, Auburn, in terms of the way that it played, I feel like it's got, certainly it equated itself well with the way that it played.
So let's go through a lot of things, because I think Mr. Stat Guy will sit there and go, Georgia was 3 out of 15 on third down. Auburn was 5 out of 18 on third down. Auburn actually outgains Georgia 329 to 251. But, folks, listen to this. Bo Nix threw 50 passes tonight. Yeah. Auburn had 86 snaps. That's kind of the inverse of that South Carolina game for Georgia, where they gave South Carolina all those snaps, and how how that game turned right there. But let's roll through some numbers. I want to make sure you get the context of these numbers really quick. 10 tackles for Monty Rice. DeAndre Swift goes over 100 yards. He's at 106 yards against this salty Auburn defense. Then you've got, as you continue to go down the list, Monty Rice with 10 tackles. Georgia has 2 sacks, Brandon. You know who has both the sacks for Georgia this year tonight?
I know Trayvon had the last one. Did he also have the other one as well?
Trayvon has one. Tyreek Stevenson has the other. The 2019 signing class at Georgia, who will be against Auburn for 3 more seasons, 2 more seasons after this one, provide both of the sacks right there. And Fromm, 13 out of 28, 3 touchdowns, 110 yards, no interceptions.
We may have some guys want to pull their cable. You can pull this through right here. We're doing our Pella Windows Postgame Show. We obviously want to be good neighbors here with everybody else who's doing their work here, so we'll let them kind of get out of the way, and we will continue this here. In fact, I'll just step right here and let him keep rolling as we keep rolling on with our Pella Windows Postgame Show here tonight. Better to step over a pipe or a cable than get hit with a water hose, I guess, which is what Georgia fans have certainly known in the past. Let us do a little bit of YouTube comments here for a moment. TM having a really good time tonight. I can't read that one either. See, Kirby uses a little bit of language. Everybody in the comment section is doing the same thing.
Does that let everybody loose? Does that let everybody loose a little bit in the comments?
A little bit. By the way, I'll try to put this video out there if I can. Y'all know I'm a little tech challenged. But I got some great video of George Pickens enjoying himself as he was going off the field tonight. So that was a nice thing to be able to see. Everybody having a good time tonight, Jeff.
Old Pickens was talking quite a lot today. There was some jibber-jabber there between him and some potential future teammates when he did not wind up at Auburn. And, I mean, Brandon, I don't know if people – is this the victory? And folks, please weigh in or whatever. Please. Brandon and I have putting this out there. That's our feelings. Is this the victory you guys feel where you take it any way you get it, go back to Georgia with all the goals still on the table?
This is the happiest night of the season by a long shot. By a long shot. Happier for me even than, believe it or not, at least in terms of the magnitude of the game, probably even happier than the Florida game. I don't want to go crazy. Maybe that's recency bias. Certainly bigger. It's certainly a bigger deal than the Notre Dame game. I mean, this was, this goes on the shelf of the big wins that Kirby Smart has gotten in the regular season and is going on 4 years of being Georgia coach. This is a very, very significant moment.
So this man here deals in all those numbers and win percentages, and this was the one that Georgia was supposed to lose this year. This was the most likely loss for Georgia. To come in here and do this on this field against this defense, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my thought here. I think Auburn was the best team, especially on this field. That was the biggest hurdle, the biggest challenge, the most weight on the bar for this Georgia football team this year. And he continues, Kirby Smart, that's one of the things he said about Trayvon is like, folks, we got to find a way to get him on the field more because he makes things happen. He's a great player. He even said, and I want to make sure everybody heard the same thing I did, he even almost let that dribble out of it, spoke it into existence, that he already thought Trayvon Walker out of Thomaston, Georgia, Upston Lee High School. He thought he was already one of the best defensive players on the entire Georgia football team right now.
And to be clear, he didn't even say defense. He's one of the better players that we have. So, so that's how big of a name Trayvon Walker's already made for himself. Let me get a couple comments here from Benjamin and Caleb Hurto, both watching on YouTube, asking about some of what they thought were second half adjustments defensively that led to the scoring by Auburn and the Tigers moving the ball down the field. Kirby Smart was pretty clear after the game, and we have no other choice but to take him at his word on this, no reason not to, that Georgia made no changes defensively. He said that Auburn just kind of dialed up something that worked. So I know that's going to be a kind of a popular message board topic. I'm sure it's probably on the forum at forum.dognation.com right now and in our comment section as well of, Georgia went prevent defense late and almost got beat. Kirby Smart says that is not what happened in this game. They did not make any defensive changes, that Auburn just kind of found, as the old coaches like to say, a little bit of a honey hole that was working there for a while. You look at 50 attempts from Bo Nix, and Brandon, most of those were like 6 yards or less. Those were basically checkdowns on the edges where he didn't really try to stretch the field a whole lot. And he did say that. He said Auburn just made the plays this time. Auburn, they got stops, they got 3 and outs in the first half, and then Auburn made the plays in the second half in the fourth quarter. I want to reiterate here. I know it wasn't an Alabama in a national championship, and it wasn't an Alabama in the SEC championship. But I'm sure a lot of the Georgia people were watching that going, okay, here goes Georgia with the lead, and here comes the opponent charging. I thought Georgia was able to put that demon down here in Jordan-Hare Stadium and to show that they can beat a good defense, a stout defense. They can do it away from Sanford Stadium, and they can put down a true SEC West game on the road. And
I know that's one of the things you're most happiest about this win, is you kind of shook away the mojo and the demons of not being able to win on the road in the SEC West against a good football team.
Oh, yeah, and it's not just Georgia that deals with these kinds of demons. Most of the teams in the country won't play in a venue like this against a team like this. Most of the cupcake schedules just don't provide these kinds of road environments. So lots of teams wilt in the moment of dealing with this crowd. It was very loud. This defense, and the Auburn defense was really good. Lots of teams kind of wilt there in that moment. So for Georgia to be able to stand up and withstand all this, then Georgia deserves to celebrate. Georgia fans deserve to celebrate. And if you're not over the moon happy, if you are not walking tall to church tomorrow morning, to the lunch spot, to wherever, if you're not walking tall tomorrow, you are doing it wrong. You are doing it wrong. This is a time to be thrilled, be happy. Anson McMahon on YouTube. We're going to go back to Facebook after this. Anson says, Jake Fromm, the general. And I'm assuming he's not talking about car insurance. I'm assuming he's talking about leading the team on the field as a field general. And I thought that was really true. Not a perfect day offensively, probably for Fromm or the offense in general. But big throw to Dominic Blaylock. That explosive play early really set the tone for the rest of the game, and all of a sudden that put Auburn in a situation where they're scrambling to get back to even as opposed to playing with a chance to take the lead. That was a huge moment there. But also red zone opportunities where, last week Georgia settled for a lot of field goals. Tonight, Rodrigo Blankenship, he's a fan favorite. Everybody loves him, but he was able to kind of rest up tonight because when Georgia kind of got in, rare times where it was in the red zone, it turned those red zone opportunities into touchdowns. And I thought some pretty creative plays that sort of enabled that to happen. I thought this was, listen, people can nitpick if they want. I thought this was a good offensive game plan tonight from Georgia. I thought that the yards were tough sledding. I thought the points were tough sledding. But to convert touchdowns in the red zone, get the big bomb play from Dominic Blaylock, who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love that?
One of the things I try to do, and Brandon plays point guard, is I try to spread it around and make sure a lot of names get mentioned. We also need to bring up the name Jake Cremata, who they definitely flipped the field a lot for Georgia. He'd been a little shaky guy. He'd been the guy that was maybe a little inconsistent. I think he hit 11 punts today at an average of 50.7 yards per punt. That's a name to think about there, right there, about how Jake Cremata was able to become a major factor. Kind of a little Cameron Nigelic-ish a little bit. And able to change that metaphor for Georgia when they had a solid punter, more in the special teams game. Brandon, you mentioned Dominic Blaylock as a guy. I want to go to another name, Jamari Salyer. Yeah. Jamari Salyer was a guy that played a lot because he had to tonight. He moved in there. There was some injury there with I saw Cade Mays dealing with a stinger early in the first half. He kept shaking his shoulder. Ben Cleveland had some hard time going a lot this week. I thought the way Georgia's offensive front kept Derek Brown from being a demon in his final matchup with.
And they were moving him around so much tonight, trying to find a spot for him to kind of get free and get loose. The Georgia offensive line just was not having it. This was another big performance when it really matters to this Georgia offensive line. We all remember back during the preseason when Kirby Smart was like, hey, you want to be the best offensive line? I'm paraphrasing, but, show me. Show me that you've lived up to the hype. I want to call you the best offensive line in the country. I believe he said, certainly on the record a little earlier during the year, challenging this group. Well, you know what? When you give Fromm all day to throw against Florida, and when you create, what I thought was a pretty, I don't want to say there was certainly not the absence of a pass rush from Auburn. They got back there a couple times. But when you do your job the way they did tonight, playing big in the biggest games, I think the Georgia offensive line, given all the injuries, given all that's going on, you mentioned Salyer working in there, Mays in a number of different spots, Trey Hill holding up when walking into the stadium today. It was pretty obvious to me that he was not walking like someone who was completely 100%, but he held up and played very, very strong here today. Give all five of those guys, really the 6-7 that played a lot tonight, give them all a lot of credit.
Yeah, you saw Channing Tindall get back in the game. And one of the things that the Dog Nation Road Tour was thinking about on the way down to Auburn this morning as well, down on I-85, is we were thinking, what was the over-under here, Brandon? A Rodrigo Blankenship 3 field goal game that we thought it would be such tough sledding. And Georgia just found a way to convert a lot of those things, especially in the red zone offense. They found a way. Even you remember when the ball to Kieris was not caught, and then the touchdown was taken away, and then they came back and they found Brian Harriet on the other side, or then they found Eli Wolf on the other side for a touchdown. I mean, Georgia continues to keep moving guys around, and and Brandon, I don't know how you felt, but for Lawrence Cager to not be able to put his hands on this game and make a dent and make a difference. And for Georgia to still come out of Jordan-Hare Stadium with a win, I think that's big for this program.
I think it's very big there as well. It's our Pella Windows Postgame Show. That's Jeff Sintel. I'm Brandon Adams. I got more of your comments. Somebody mentioned Richard LeCount. I want to make sure I give the proper credit for this. Boy, the comments are coming so fast. Yeah, it's Ryan Presley Gamble says that LeCount laid some slobber knockers today. He really did. And when you think about, for these guys in that class of 2017, this was a big topic with a lot of the reporters talking to guys with the media, after the game tonight. But when you think about that group of 2017 guys, 3-0 in terms of clinching the SEC East, a third straight win versus Auburn when you count the 2017 SEC Championship, and that group has just turned out to be as advertised in terms of all the hype in the early days, really, of Dog Nation Daily. We gave them in terms of what they were going to mean for UGA. Boy, they're paying off right now, aren't they? They really are.
I mean, it's going to give me pause, and it's going to be a transitional moment for me covering this team when those young men move on to Roger Goodell's Sunday League, because they've meant so much with the reformation of Georgia football. And, Brandon, we mentioned Richie LeCount. That dude needs his own pair of spiked shoulder pads, because it seems like the only guy consistently turning teams over and wearing those things. I mean, Richie is being responsible for a lot of big plays and a lot of turnovers. I mean, it's another week where he's putting the shoulder spikes on, and that was a big turnover, folks. Yeah. There was one turnover in this game.
Give Jermaine Johnson some credit for that one there too. Now he's in there on that play that frees that football up.
He is, but there's one turnover in this game, and that one loomed very large, because you look at that difference. Georgia holding on a 21-14 lead. I think that possession and the way that changed things helped out a great deal for this win tonight.
All right, let's get a little bit your comments coming up here. It's our Pella Windows Postgame Show. We're on the field here at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and boy, we're happy about it. 21-14, Dogs get the win against Auburn. Own the East now for a third straight year, and it feels awful good to be coming to you here from the Plains tonight. By the way, Pella Window and Door, thanks so much for bringing it all to us. A couple different ways for you to get in touch with them and find out about how they can help equip your house with energy-efficient windows and doors. PellaSoutheast.us, that's the website. PellaSoutheast.us, that's the website. And 404-445-2979. 404-445-2979. That's the number to dial. While you're kind of giving a roll call of guys who play well, I think Michael Carvel back in our Atlanta studios, friendly confines of Dog Nation Royal Headquarters. He also mentions the name DJ Daniel. I thought Daniel really came of age tonight.
Single coverage a lot, too.
Against Anthony Schwartz a few times. Now, listen, when I was watching him running step for step with Anthony Schwartz, I couldn't help but think back to some of those videos you posted about a year or so ago of Daniel back before we knew he was coming to Georgia. Some of those 40 times he was running down there. His Georgia Military College, that's where DJ Daniel was. Some of those 40 times. He's a fast dude. Anthony Schwartz is one of the fastest living humans. And, Daniel made up some ground on him tonight, made a big pass play on one of the few times that Auburn truly tried to go deep here tonight. I think you got a shout-out 14 there as well as Tyson Campbell. Boy, it's a tough situation because you know how good Campbell is, but as Campbell continues to deal with a little bit of an injury situation.
I'm going to say this. Sometimes injuries cripple teams and limit teams, and then sometimes injuries develop teams, and it's a next man up culture. So Tyson has been on the mend, hasn't been 100%, and look at all those starts DJ Daniels got in a row to kind of fortify things. And then when Tyson comes back, Georgia looks a little bit stouter. And guess what? Tyreek Stevenson, the 5-star, at least on one service, keeps getting better and better every week. Now, he's a chatty dude now. I mean, he's a chatty dude. I don't know who would get the most talkative in the freshman class, whether that would be George Pickens or Tyreek Stevenson. There are a couple times he goes running down on the kickoff, and Georgia's got the big lead, and he puts that right there up in front of the student section for Auburn. But Tyreek making some plays. We mentioned that sack earlier tonight, and all of a sudden, you got something there when you got a Walker, you got a Tyreek Stevenson, you got Nakobe Dean still being in there making big plays. And, folks, I want to draw your attention to one thing. Yeah, Auburn threw the ball for 245 yards against Georgia. But yards per attempt, and those metrics about yards per completion. They had 30 completions and on 50 attempts. Auburn fed the ball. Get this. Anthony Schwartz touched the ball 7 times. He had 7 catches. I believe he had 45 yards on those 7 catches. That's the fastest human under the age of 20 in college football right now. The fastest man in college football right now. And then their ace receiver, Seth Williams, who has 8 touchdowns on the year. And I know a lot of Georgia fans would love to have a receiver with 8 touchdowns on the year. He caught 13 balls tonight, Brandon.
He's a very good player. He's a very good player.
Georgia seems to always catch an alpha receiver this year in the big games. Think about Jawan Jennings. Yeah. Think about Kyle Pitts. Think about now, Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. And now you've got this man, Seth Williams, out of Alabama as well, playing for Auburn. He had 13 catches for 121 yards. So, yeah, they went to those guys. They went to those wells. But Georgia made sure that the balls were caught, and then they got that Auburn Tiger on the ground.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we'll get more of your comments here coming up. It's our Pella Windows Postgame Show. We're live here at Jordan-Hare Stadium, as I said before. Let me give a quick shout-out to Pella for everything that they do. Of course, they can help equip your house with energy-efficient windows and doors. PellaSoutheast.us or 404-445-2979. 404-445-2979. That's the number you can get in touch. We'll be back on YouTube, get some more of your comments. So Georgia clinches the East now for a third straight year. We call it owning the East, and we're proud to say that Georgia's done that. That means the Georgia Bulldogs, one way or another, back in the SEC championship game for a third straight year. And boy, that's a fun thing to be able to say. And I want to make my case for this. When you see tonight, Clemson gets a 24-point win over Wake Forest. Clemson's best win of the season is Texas A&M. That's a win that Georgia has a chance to get for itself next week. But for right now, Georgia claims a big win over Notre Dame, which looks better by the way that Notre Dame handled a ranked opponent tonight. Navy won that game easily, really handled them. Florida, of course, is much to my chagrin, they're not really going away right now. They went on the road today, handled an opponent that beat them the last 2 years. The Florida win for Georgia looks even better. When you add a resume that has a Florida, a Notre Dame, an Auburn, the only team that Auburn's lost to were top 10 teams thus far this year. When that's what you're working with, Georgia ought to be the number 3 team when the playoff rankings release Tuesday night. And you say, it doesn't matter yet. It's only the last ranking that matters. You just need to be in the playoff. I think by being number 3 this week, which Georgia should be, committee probably won't do it, but what they should do is put Georgia at number 3. I think that opens the door for Georgia to win the SEC, knock off LSU, and by doing so, become potentially the number 1 overall seed. But taking that step over Clemson would be the first big step there in that direction.
I mean, this victory here, Brandon, says a lot. The way they played with Auburn, the way they held Auburn, the way they moved the ball against that defense. I mean, Auburn has already had two very tight performances with Florida and LSU. Remember how tight that LSU game was, Brandon? And that one was on the road in Death Valley as well. And folks, I apologize. There's one thing I want to say, and I know this is a happy, jubilant mood, and everybody's great. And Georgia beat Auburn, and that's a good news and thumbs up for a lot of people. But some other great news tonight is the young lady Chamberlain Smith. She's a student photographer at the University of Georgia. She shoots pictures for the Georgia Sports Information Department. I was talking to this young lady. We were right over there in the line before Georgia comes out for the field tonight. And she had some leopard cheetah type boots on. And I said, hey, ma'am, those are really nice boots you got on right there. So when I saw what happened to that young lady, the reports are coming out that she's okay. She can move her extremities. She's being checked for concussion protocol and also an orbital fracture. But she is in good health. If you saw that, sometimes people just watch these games and they think, oh, those poor photographers. Well, they're trying to do a job. They're trying to get a great image that everybody would want to share and put on social media and to love this football team and the program they cover even more. And she got rolled up. I think that Brian Harrion ran into her. Kirby Smart even said it in the post-game press conference that Brian was devastated. He was really tore up at what happened. I want folks to tell me if the broadcast showed at halftime Brian Harrion and Jake Fromm took a knee, and I was told that they were praying for that young lady to come through that thing. And that is very shocking. I know this is a game for a lot of people. It's work for other people. But when you see a young girl like that get rolled up, and the camera, I think, came up into her field of view, and that also added to the injury. It wasn't looking good, and most people will say that is a dangerous job to be a sideline photographer. Yes, Georgia won, but I think the big picture here is that young lady is doing fine right now.
Well, that's good to know. Certainly we'll keep her in our prayers. Obviously, it was a scary situation for anyone in the stadium or watching on TV, and she's obviously a great photographer. We've used a lot of her work here at dognation.com as well, so our prayers for her that she continues a speedy recovery, and we continue to hear good news on her prognosis. We'll talk some more Georgia over Auburn here. Chris Pittman said the TV mentioned it but didn't show it. I know there's also a little bit of controversy with how the CBS broadcast handled this here today, but nice to see the Georgia guys keeping it first class. And from Arian's standpoint, obviously he was devastated, I'm sure, to be a part of that, but certainly a classy move to send up prayers the way that he did. Somebody also mentioned Michael Kelly to kind of, lighten the mood. I guess before the game, and I never have quite gotten exactly the proper transcript of what went on. I tried to listen to it, but I couldn't quite hear it too well from someone else's tweet. That I guess that Dan Mullen, interviewed by CBS before coverage threw it to Jordan-Hare Stadium, was really cheering for Auburn tonight. I tweeted this before we started our show. To think that you can make Auburn fans, Florida fans sad at the same time. Dan Mullen, sad face Dan Mullen that he's not going to win the SEC East again and probably won't for a long time to come. Apparently he was really rooting for Auburn. Didn't get a chance to get what he wanted here tonight.
Brendan, does that bother you at all? Is that going to make your hash browns or your coffee at Waffle House taste any salty that the Gators also took another indirect L today on their SEC East championship hopes?
I enjoyed it. That makes me really happy. I like the idea of Mullen dealing with that. I like the idea of Malzahn being unhappy there as well. So I'm really happy with all of that. Let me get a few more comments here for a sec. All right. Cameron Merrill says 3 straight SEC Easts, 3 straight over Auburn and Florida. That's exactly right. When you count the SEC championship in 2017, that's the 3rd straight time that Georgia's beaten Auburn. Now the 3rd straight time that Georgia's beaten Florida. Kirby Smart, as a UJ alumnus, really cares about those rivalry wins, and he continues to collect those.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like we said earlier in the program, Georgia has a 3rd straight SEC East division crown. Hadn't been done since the mighty Gators were very mighty back in the 90s. You got the Gators eliminated from the SEC East race. I'm sure everybody's going to start making their plans for Atlanta because Dog Nation will be there. We'll all be there. It'll be another Dog Nation invasion down there from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And football teams, Brandon, everywhere at every level, they want to go into their locker room afterward and they want to say, get a little bit better each week. Get a little bit better each week, and Georgia continues to get better and better each week. I like what Andrew Thomas had to say in his post-game thoughts. Someone asked him, are you relieved? Are you happy? Are you so thankful that Georgia was able to get this win? Andrew just kind of went about his business, and he said that's a good football team, and that's a good win. Now we got more to do.
Scott Harris says that he saw something between the handshake between Malzahn and Kirby. Something tells me they don't probably have the most, there's different kind of coaches' handshakes. There's the one where, you kind of come in and give it one of these deals, you know what I'm saying?
Sideways hug.
Yeah, something tells me you're not getting the sideways hug handshake between Kirby Smart and Malzahn. It's probably more of one of these deals where you just kind of walk and keep going. Something tells me that's probably more of the handshake situation there. But as I said before, if you are competitors, if you are rivals, you ought to have a little bit of a feeling for each other. And the fact that I'm sure Malzahn really wants to win this game, Kirby really wants to win this game. Publicly, they keep it first class. They always compliment each other. And I'm sure they have great respect for each other as competitors because they've had some wars, figuratively speaking, over the years. But the idea that maybe they're not exactly, breaking bread during the offseason, there's nothing wrong with that.
Connor, who's your player of the game? Brendan, who's your player of the game?
Well, that's a tough question.
Swift was still 106 yards out of Georgia's 131. DeAndre Swift had 106 of those.
Yeah, he's a strong candidate.
You got to think about him a little bit.
I thought the early punts, especially because I thought that field position early in the game is so important, and it was one of those things where in kind of a tough, hard-fought game, it's like even if you're not going to score, try to avoid a 3 and out, or if you do get the 3 and out, go ahead and try to flip the field. So I mean, from that standpoint, I thought that Camarda was huge, especially early in this game.
I got to laugh. So it's going to be trending on Twitter if it's not already. Hashtag HBTFD is trending on Twitter right now. That's going out. How about them?
Yeah, blank. Yeah, that's.
After reviewing the tape, that was intentional. That was an intentional slip.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Connor says after, and we'll let Connor have a final word here in a moment. But he says after reviewing the tape, that was an intentional slip. I'm telling you, I think that this is the new thing with Orgeron saying what he said last week, Kirby saying what he said tonight. This is these coaches going to work a little blue here post game, apparently. So anyway, all right, we got time for a few more of your comments. We'll kind of keep rolling and take that here as part of our Pella Windows Postgame Show. And of course, we really appreciate you being with us. Where was I last time? Let me pop over here to Facebook here for a moment, find out kind of what's going over here on the Facebook side here for a moment. Colby Conti says, great team win, slightly concerning. We let them back in the fourth quarter. Here's what I really think about this, and this is not spin control for me. This is not me trying to put, a glossy finish on this game. I think the game speaks for itself. When you play a tough team in their stadium, you should expect to be a 60-minute game. And sometimes when, a lot of your good plays cluster near the beginning of the game, we have a tendency to create a narrative about that. Or when a lot of the opponent's bad plays or good plays of their own cluster towards the end of the game, we have a tendency to create a narrative about that. The truth is, in totality, this game was exactly what it was supposed to be, a hard-fought game for 60 minutes, a game in which Georgia seemingly dominated, a portion of it. Auburn seemed to find some success, and I don't want to say dominated, but certainly kind of had their way there for a few minutes near the end. But ultimately, the larger 60-minute story is exactly what it was supposed to be. Georgia in a fight for its life on the road against a very good team, the kind of team that only loses to other very good teams. And ultimately, the idea that Auburn scored a couple touchdowns, if that's the kind of thing that you're spending a lot of time worried about tonight, I really think you're doing this wrong. I think this is a night to be thrilled. I think it's a night to be celebratory for the purposes of winning the East, the fact that Auburn's beaten Georgia again, or Georgia's beaten Auburn again. I think all of that is absolutely worth celebrating. Jeff, even privately, sometimes we have a tendency to kind of overanalyze this stuff. I'm as guilty of that as anyone. This is not a game to overanalyze. You came to Jordan-Hare Stadium and you won. You don't have to say anything else. This is not one of those games where you have to do a big autopsy after it's over. The purpose of this game was to win it. Georgia came here and won, and it's a night to celebrate.
Gosh, you know these things so well, Brandon. What was the line?
3 points before kickoff.
And what was the win total by?
7 points.
They doubled the expectation there, Brandon?
Yeah, for sure they did. And you can say, well, boy, it had a chance to be there a little longer. And I know some people are going to say, well, the rushing touchdown streak came to an end today. Honestly, Kirby Smart would never say this. I think he's glad. I think he's glad to have that done. I don't think Kirby wants that sign on his back. It sounds like Connor Riley agrees. I don't think he wants that sign on his back the rest of the season. So Bo Nix got a touchdown on the ground. That's over with. Now Georgia can just get back to the business of not yielding very many points, because when you were already second in the country in points allowed, you give up 14 against a top 12-ish, top 13-ish type opponent. Your defense tonight lived up to the hype.
Yeah, and I don't know, Brandon. I don't really get sensational with that stat there. I still think one rushing touchdown allowed through 10 games in this conference is still pretty sporty feat. I think the streak was already out there that nobody had went that far, went this deep into a season without giving a rushing touchdown in like 10, 15, 20 years.
No, it's at least 20 years, and ESPN Stats and Info has to say it like that because they don't have accurate data. Yeah. And that's a pretty specific piece of data. You don't have that kind of data stretching back beyond 20 years. It's been at least 20 years since the team has gone that far. You asked a really good question about an MVP, and I want to get Connor Riley's thoughts on this in a moment. But Alton McGurk in our Facebook comment section was mentioning the defensive line. And, Jeff, I do think this is one of those games where when we go back and rewatch it, and so many folks will do that on YouTube, or on their DVRs, or I guess maybe some of them do it on YouTube there as well. We certainly condone and sanction the DVR watching, but you might be able to find it on YouTube. The point is, this is going to be a game where unsung heroes are going to emerge. My guess is Jordan Davis had to be doing something pretty good here tonight. Devontae Wyatt kind of in and out there.
Yeah, had an injury, jump back.
Had an injury and jump back in. This is going to be one of those games, obviously Amani Rice comes to mind, where some of those unsung heroes were probably doing some big things for this Georgia defense all night long, because we say it all the time. I probably said it 1,000 times in the show. I've said it 1,000 times on Dog Nation Daily. If you do not run the ball on Georgia, you're not winning. Auburn had, fewer than 40 rushing yards in the first half, or fewer than 50 rushing yards in the first half. That's just not a recipe for beating Georgia. Limiting that early in the game, I thought was a big deal. Connor's going to come up here and join us. Jeff, here's part of our Pella Windows Postgame Show. Why don't you move close so we can make sure we kind of get everybody in the shot here. While Connor's getting, Jermaine Dunbar says they're rushing y'all. So here's the thing. I couldn't say this a moment ago. Some, drunk idiot made his way onto the field, and, I don't know why they just didn't have him arrested. It's like a bunch of Auburn people are just, yelling at him. He's yelling back. It's clear nobody wanted to fight. But, why did it take so long to get him off the field? And so, a minute ago, I'm talking to Jeff. I'm kind of laughing. Jeff's kind of laughing. That's because they're, dragging this guy all over this way. He gets up there. He runs 100 yards. And unfortunately, I think he was a Georgia fan, or at least something. I couldn't even quite tell what he was doing.
I think you're already giving this guy too much airtime. Let's get back.
No, hold on, but somebody brought it up in the comment section, so that's kind of what went down there. And so we're not getting rushed off. It was somebody else who kind of got rushed off there.
I have MVP. Positional unit wise, I give it to the defensive line. I thought it's hard to single out one guy from that unit, but the group as a whole was outstanding tonight. Tyler Clark made plays, David Marshall made plays, Trayvon Walker made the biggest play. But as far as one individual player, I mean, I have to give it to my guy, Dominic Blaylock. I mean, for a freshman to make a play like that, to open up the game, to give Georgia a 7-0 lead, which allows them to operate from, playing ahead, I think that really allowed them to really sort of take control for that first half and even into that third quarter there.
Also, Trey Clark mentioning Tyler Clark stepping up. First of all, Tyler Clark has had an unbelievable season. He also had some beautiful plays tonight. Jeff, I would agree that Tyler Clark's one of the big players of this defensive line right now, and so much fun to see him living up to so much of the promise and the potential that he's kind of always possessed. We all have great memories of what he did in the Rose Bowl. This has been one of those seasons where he's been a very consistent contributor and just a really big part of the success equation for Georgia all season long.
I just think he's healthy. I mean, last year he wasn't healthy, and he kept, coming in there, coming to work at 80, 85%. I'm going to throw another name in there, Malik Herring. I mean, this guy is a starter, basically a starter the whole game. And, you didn't get a lot of production on the other side out of Azeez Ojulari today. That's because Tiga Wanganu, I think I got that name right.
Yep.
He is a 6'7" future NFL offensive tackle as well with, reach for days. And Azeez had a hard time getting around him, but Malik made plays. I mean, you go at Tate Crowder had 5 tackles. Malik had 4 tackles. Eric Stokes was the guy tackling Seth Williams all that time tonight. He had 7 tackles. Richard LeCount continues to come up with big plays. I've gotten some text messages as I asked that question to Brandon, who's the MVP. I've got a couple of people texting me that Richard LeCount was their MVP as well. I mean, folks, Richard, the game is there with the name and the mouth and the talk and the swagger. I mean, somebody get him a new Santa suit because he's bringing a lot of joy right now to the Georgia football nation.
Well, Connor, it's amazing how someone like Richie can go from being that young kind of rookie freshman type guy that has all kinds of promise to now really being one of the veteran presences on this team. It has happened for him seemingly so fast. I'm sure it hasn't felt as quite as fast to him, but he's just one of the bedrock members of this defense. And it seems like just yesterday he was just arriving on campus and Kirby was having to teach him how to play.
Right, and he spoke to some of that in our postgame. He was asked about, how does winning 3 straight SEC East titles mean for him, and because every year of this 2017 class that we've talked so much about, they've won the SEC East every year, and as far as winning an SEC division 3 straight times, that's only happened twice in the entire conference history. Alabama did it once from 14 to 16 with Saban. Kirby Smart was a part of that first 2 with that staff, and Steve Spurrier did it in the 90s. Urban Meyer never did it. Fulmer never did it. It's a very select group of teams that can say that, and now Georgia can, in fact, say that.
2 moments. Now, I remember William Poole and Richard LeCount both said this in their 2017 class because they saw the 2016 season and they saw what Tennessee did to Georgia. They saw, the ups and downs, and they said they would never lose to a team that wears orange during their time at Georgia. That covers.
Sounds good to me.
That covers the Gators. One other moment of vignette, with my camera, I'm looking around trying to catch everything. Brandon, get you a safety. You talked about a bedrock safety. Get you a safety. Get you a safety. Get you a safety.
It's down here.
Wait, sorry. Get you a safety. I feel like there's another chin down here. Get yourself a safety that when, Georgia had to go get the defensive stop again. I was looking at J.R. Reed, and J.R. Reed was like, basically, let's go. He was like, I want this smoke. I want this fire.
I want this moment.
They want that moment. They're like, yeah, put it on us. Put it on our back. That's what we work so. Like, one of the things Richie said in his postgame is, he's like, guys, I know you guys look at all the superficial thing and the stats and the yards. He's like, you know how we do all this stuff? It's because we work so hard to make this happen. We work all summer. We think about this. We go over preparations and we drill it. Richie's a fun guy to be around, but to see him after games, he came to Georgia wanting Georgia to do things like this, like win the SEC East. And by the time he leaves, it's not a big deal anymore. Yeah. It is the expectation for this program. Like, he wants reporters, erudite reporters at that, to walk out of a press conference and hear the head coach throw some swag around and say, that's my coach. Because I heard a reporter say that today.
Please don't denigrate me by calling me a reporter, please, by all means. I'm a personality.
The personality, the guy that holds the microphone, Brandon Adams, that's a moment I'll remember during my experience of working him. He's walking out there and he goes, that's my coach. That's my coach right there.
Travis Vosky says, who's ready for the college football standings on Tuesday? He has his hand raised. I am there as well. I talked about this week on Dog Nation Daily to go back to the point that Jeff made. And by the way, you're watching our Pella Windows Postgame Show live here from Jordan-Hare Stadium, 21-14. Dogs on top over Auburn. that when it comes to the mental requirements for a game like this, we have a tendency, I think, to fixate on poise, and Kirby Smart congratulated his team and complimented them coming into the week about how poised they've been. But there's a certain part of this game where it's the flip side of that. It's not poise, it's the kind of nasty edge necessary to win a spot like this. That's what Tyreek Stevenson, I believe, has. That's what George Pickens, I believe, has. You mentioned Richard LeCount. That's a guy that you can kind of say there in that vein there as well. There are a lot of guys who I think kind of bring that to the table, which is a great thing to see. We got more of your comments coming up here.
We have a score update here. Baylor is pantsing Oklahoma right now, 28-3.
Big score there. So the Bears on the banks of the Brazos River in Waco, Texas, with a 28-3 lead for now over the Oklahoma City.
I think I should let you know, whoever told you that Clemson only won by 24, that is an incorrect statement.
It was you that told me that.
I did not say that. They won by 49.
Oh, well, never. Even still, you know what? Listen.
Team they're going to face in the ACC championship game.
It'll be Virginia in all likelihood.
Listen, even still, Georgia should be ranked number 3. I don't care how many points you beat Wake Forest by.
I think listening to Kirby Smart postgame, I think he's been listening to a little bit of you. The way he talks up Texas A&M, BA, every step of the way this week, these past couple of weeks, he has been steadfast in saying, can't overlook this Texas A&M team that loses to every good team they play. And Kirby Smart, after this game, we asked him, what does winning this SEC East mean? And he made it very clear. At this moment, nothing, because they have to go play a Texas A&M team next week that is pretty darn good.
And I understand where he's going to come from. That's a hard thing to do. I mean, we are so lucky in the fact that we get to stand here, especially me. I got to really enjoy this and have a good time with that. Kirby has like 5 minutes where he gets to do that. He gets to drop an F-bomb in the press conference. He gets to give a high five to a few fans. I saw his family there to greet him, kind of a touching moment as he's, kind of in the privacy of the concourse here at Jordan-Hare Stadium. But by the time he gets his wits about him again and his bearings about him again, he's got to look ahead of that next game. And that's, coaches talk about 24-hour rule. For Kirby, he doesn't even get to enjoy for 24 hours. It's not even 24 minutes in some cases, but we get to enjoy it, and we're certainly happy to be able to do that.
We're going to spin it forward now, because everyone's going to talk about, well, how is this Georgia team going to possibly match up with LSU, especially with the way the offense looked in the fourth quarter, which was admittedly not what you want. That LSU offense, as potent as it is, scored 23 points on that Auburn defense. That game was in Baton Rouge. Yeah. Georgia scored 21 on that same Auburn offense. Absolutely. In Jordan-Hare Stadium today. And I think, if you can get through A&M, you can get through Tech without a blemish. I'm not saying Georgia's going to be a favorite. Yeah. But as a Georgia fan, I think you should like your chances based on what you've seen out of this team in big games this season.
Without a doubt. I think it's coming together for Georgia at the right time. And one of our good YouTube commenters, All About the Wave, says, well, BA, if Georgia hadn't lost to South Carolina, it would be number 3 on Tuesday. Let me tell you something else that I think was very significant about this game. And I'm not going to apologize for what I'm about to say. Non-Georgia fans won't like it, but it's true. Georgia's loss to South Carolina could not be less relevant right now. It could not be more in the rearview mirror. Georgia's got 3 big major wins over ranked teams, and this one comes by virtue of a road win. Georgia's got a neutral site win against Florida. The South Carolina game a few weeks ago, it might as well have happened to another team. There are going to be some Georgia haters out there, some SEC haters who try to use that to bludgeon Georgia with as a cudgel against the Dogs. It's not going to work. Georgia's building a resume for the positive that completely erases whatever blemish it might have from the negative. And Waves, I love your comments. On this point, though, I just think it's important to bring out that the South Carolina game for Georgia right now could not matter less. This was a major accomplishment tonight, a major moment worth celebrating here. Let's get a few more Facebook comments, and we'll get ready to pack it up and get ready to go here.
Waffle House.
We got Waffle House.
Winners eat at Waffle House, and Georgia was a big-time winner.
I already told you I'm going to find Gus Malzahn's Waffle House. He's famous for eating at one after Auburn wins, and I'm going to claim it on behalf of the great state of Georgia. Yes, sir.
Score break. Texas A&M is in a fight right now with South Carolina. That score is 13-3 right now, almost at the half.
Oh, well, look at that. I mean, a 10-point lead going into the half is not exactly a dogfight, but
it's a fight. It is a fight.
So we'll follow that, see where it goes. I guess also the other big news here today, and this was a very hot topic during the forum during the game. Georgia fans definitely had a strong reaction to this. The injury to Tua Tagovailoa, and this is a serious, severe injury. It's a sad situation, but it's also going to be dealt with controversially. I mean, this is already happening. The blame game is going to get played fairly or unfairly about whether or not Tua Tagovailoa should be in the game. There are reports coming in. It's kind of hard to sort of sift through what happened for a game you weren't even watching, and I wasn't watching it when it happened. Obviously, I was not in Starkville, Mississippi either. That apparently Tua Tagovailoa was about to come out of the game. This was going to be his final series. There's some conjecture that maybe the TV broadcast showed Tua pleading with Saban to stay in the game. I can't confirm that or deny that. Do you find any reason to blame Saban for what is obviously going to be a pretty tragic injury? And I use that I think flippantly here. This is an injury that's going to require a long recovery from Tungo Vailoa based on the early medical reports that I'm getting. Did Saban err by having him in the game up 35-7?
No, I'm not blaming Saban for this. I think just football, it's a violent physical game. It's a game of injuries, and unfortunately this happened to Tua. I think if the shoe was on the other foot here and Georgia was up 35-7 and wanted a 2-minute drive out of their offense, I think you'd want to see Georgia just go out and execute that 2-minute drive. We saw today how important those reps are and just pulling that off, the confidence that it gives you. So I'm not blaming Saban. These guys are football players. They want to play. And unfortunately, it's an incredibly unfortunate injury to Tua. I don't think you can really blame anyone here for it.
Yes.
Jeff, how about you?
Such a positive young man. You think about who has the personality and the hope and the optimism to overcome something like this. Because, Brandon, I don't know if you've been reading the same reports I have. They're kind of connecting the dots and saying this is a Bo Jackson type hip injury. And, whatever you want to say about Alabama Crimson Tide, Tua Tagovailoa is a bright light for college football. Him and the ukulele, the big smile. They need more players like Tua Tagovailoa in this game, and everybody starts wondering, okay, what happens now? Obviously, the likelihood is he will still go forward with his career. He will try to rehab it and get that back, and he'll likely be in the Sunday league for everything else. And the things about that is you still got to play football, Brandon. Mississippi State is what it is, but the reports, and please, guys, this is what I've heard, newsroom, press room, photographer room, sideline chatter, is that one statement that was made to me was that Tua asked to go back in because he needed more reps. He needed to get sharper in the 2-minute late in that game, late in that first half against Mississippi State. And folks, we've talked about this a little bit today. This isn't knitting class. This isn't Sunday school. This is a very physical, violent game. And sometimes these things just happen. And it's not a blame game and put it on this guy. You're talking about the greatest college football coach of our time. I don't care what hat you wear. I don't care what flag's in front of your house. Nick Saban's probably went through a situation like this with a player and Tua Tagovailoa about 15 times already in his career, because Tua's a player and he wants to play, and he thought he needed the work against Mississippi State.
So I'm going to wrap up, obviously, here from our end here at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Turning back to the Georgia Bulldogs here for a moment. 21-14 is the win. And, I joke and I have a good time, and I'm thrilled about the victory coming from the perspective of a fan for a moment. I really do think things are shaping up for Georgia pretty well right now. Connor, I agree with what you said, that this is a winnable game for Georgia in the SEC Championship against LSU. I do think the Texas A&M game is a challenge next Saturday, but you know what? It's a chance to pack Sanford Stadium. It's a chance to rock and roll in front of a 330 crowd. Everybody else in the SEC, and literally everybody else in the SEC is playing Cupcake Saturday next week. So Georgia gets a stage to itself. And Georgia really gets a chance to flex and demonstrate what a national contender that it is. I got to tell you, this season is shaping up very, very nicely for Georgia right now. And I don't know where it's going to end, and I don't think any of us can say for sure how it ends. But feeling pretty good to be a Georgia Bulldog right now. I think fans ought to be feeling that way. I think the path for Georgia is not an easy one, but it is a straight one at the moment.
It's never easy with Georgia. In college football, it's really just as a whole never easy. LSU last week, as great as they've been this season, they had to hold off comebacks from Auburn and Alabama late in those games. And to their credit, they've done that. But, in college football, at this point in the year, how many teams can you say control their own destiny in the college football playoff? 4, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I would say LSU does. I would say Ohio State does. I would say Clemson does. And right now, honestly, I would say Georgia does. Because if you're Oregon or you're Utah, and I guess Baylor, if they continue to win, does as well. But if you're Utah or Oregon, you needed Georgia to lose tonight. This kills, or if you're Oregon, this absolutely kills you, because Georgia went into here, whereas that Oregon team played in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. And Oregon lost that game. Oregon gave that game away. Like Georgia, they led the entire game, gave it away on the last play. Georgia, on the other hand, scored exactly 21 points, but they held Auburn, and Auburn for whatever reason, just couldn't score and couldn't pull off the magic that they did against Oregon. I think that should speak volumes to the committee about where Georgia ranks compared to Oregon.
Tim Harrell says, y'all get me too pumped up. I want that ring. Tim, go ahead and dream away, man. That ring is on the line, and it's going to be an arduous journey. And the fact is, it only seems easier for other teams. It seems more difficult for your favorite team and easier for other teams. The truth is, they would feel the exact opposite. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be a challenge. There are supposed to be moments along the way when you think, hey, maybe it's just not supposed to be, maybe it's just not meant to be this year. Maybe this team's not going to get it done. But Georgia has emerged out of all of that, still very much alive and very much taking a big step to where it needs to go. Here's my challenge, by the way, as we spin it forward here a little bit to think about next Saturday against Texas A&M. There is absolutely zero excuse for Sanford Stadium, duly fielded Sanford Stadium, not rocking and rolling. It had better be knock your hair back loud all day next Saturday. Somebody asked in the comment section a little earlier, and I apologize for not remembering who asked this in particular. Was the crowd here today loud? You know what? It really was.
Loud. It got loud.
I got a lot of respect for these Auburn people. I think they use the music here well. I think the students get into it. I think the fans get into it. I think this is an incredible, incredible atmosphere. And you know what? Next Saturday, I think Sanford Stadium's an incredible atmosphere. And Texas A&M, they're coming into a buzzsaw next weekend. That's all I got to tell you. Jimbo Fisher, sorry for you.
Hey, Georgia fans, be there because this is going to be the last time you're going to see guys like Rodrigo Blankenship play in Sanford Stadium. But also, there's a good chance DeAndre Swift, it's his last time. Richard LeCount, it's his last time. Andrew Thomas, Jake Fromm. Guys who have been the backbone of this 3-year run that they've had that has been incredibly impressive. I think you guys need to be there and cheer these guys on because they have meant a world to this program and they have left it in a much better place than when they came into it after the 2016 season.
You're 100% right. I'm going to be legitimately emotional about seeing some of those guys walk off. So Monty Moon's another one. So what did Mullen say? Because everybody says it. What did Mullen say?
War Eagle.
Did he say that really?
Yeah, he did.
Well, you know what? Good for you, Dan. Good for you. Take it on the chin. Enjoy watching on first Saturday in December. Guess what?
Everyone's carefully here, BA.
No, listen. Just hear me out on this. Your wife Megan will be happy to have you home. Y'all can put up a Christmas tree. You can go shopping. You can have some hot chocolate, a little Christmas mug that day.
Go do some recruiting on the trail, right? That extra week.
Yeah, well, give you an extra week to go chase down those 3 stars that I know that you're after. Because on the first Saturday in December, Georgia's going to be doing what it's always doing. There's a reason we say own the East. It is Georgia's to have every single year. Dan Mullen, you might as well go coach somewhere else.
You excited to run home in your truck?
So I tweeted that today. The funny thing is, like, a lot of people don't even know that, but like I got so many responses back of people who did. So yeah, listen, every now and then you have to give a little nod out there. Jeff, final thought from you?
It's a great day for Dog Nation. It's a great day for to cover the Bulldogs, to be around the Bulldogs, to see these players grow and prosper, doing a lot of the right things. I mean, I want to give a shout out to a media member, Marvin James, who works at Macon. He tweeted something out recently about Brian Harrion, and after that happened to that young girl, Brian goes over there. And he's genuinely concerned about the girl. Like, they literally had to tell him to go back to your sideline and go play a football game. And,
Tough situation.
I am a big proponent that, it's got to be bigger than football a lot of times. And moments like this is where you reveal yourself as a person. And, I mean, you can choose anybody in the world you want to root for or pull for or cheer for or go support with your money and wear your jerseys or whatever. But that's a class young man.
35 is a dude.
And
And we can say that she has been now released from the hospital.
Great to hear.
And, I will say, too, that, like, I like the photos, right? I like the videos. It's like, when we're watching Dog Nation Daily, a lot of the videos that we get come because you are so close to the field shooting those videos. Read the stories at dognation.com. The stories are made better by really good photos. Chamberlain works for UGA, but they share those photos with, a lot of the outlets, Dog Nation included. The photos make the story better. And it's like, you don't think about it because 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, everything goes as planned. But, man, you are really, really close to the action there, and it's a scary situation. I have been bumped into by a player, and it's jarring how it just shakes you. It's just so jarring, even when they're slowing down. To have her hit at full speed, something I've never experienced before. Really, really happy to hear that she's released from the hospital. How about a final thought on the game tonight, Connor, and kind of where Georgia goes from here?
Big win this week. They got Texas A&M next week. And I've been told they are a tough opponent that Georgia cannot overlook.
We definitely got we're on to Cincinnati from Kirby a little bit tonight, and a lot of you know the Bill Belichick thing. There was a lot of on to Cincinnati from him tonight when it comes to Texas A&M, especially any question related to owning the East.
So I will say this, that, in the forum we threw out a prediction. I got another prediction, and that one went okay. But I got another prediction tonight. Is it 4 cups of coffee for Brandon? Is it you going to get everything? Or are you going to go in there and you're going to say, I want what Gus eats? Can somebody tell me what Gus is eating? And I want 2 plates of it. No, excuse me, 3 plates of it, because that's how many straight wins Georgia has.
We are going to Gus Malzahn's Waffle House, and I'm going to say that I claim this on behalf of the great state of Georgia. 21-14. They still got it up there. We're going to get all kinds of pictures in front of this. It is happy celebratory turf here for the Georgia Bulldogs. They beat the Auburn Tigers. Let me give another shout out to Pella Window and Door for making all this possible. Y'all, we wouldn't get to come do this and have all the fun we get to have if it wasn't for our friends at Pella Window and Door. They can equip your house with energy-efficient windows and doors. You can call them at 404-445-2979. That's 404-445-2979. Or you can hit them up online at pellasoutheast.us. That's pellasoutheast.us. That'll get you in touch with Pella Window and Door. You can get some energy-efficient windows and doors. It's got to get a little cold out here now, so if you can turn the heat on, getting cozy, get those good windows and doors. They'll keep all that energy inside the house, which is a really good thing. All right, I think we're about done here. We're going to wrap things up. We appreciate you being here. Y'all, we're going to have a good time. Boy, Monday on Dog Nation Daily is going to be a good one. Deep South's oldest rivalry. It is claimed by the Dogs again. I tell you, 3 straight when you count the 2017 SEC Championship, and why wouldn't you? Y'all enjoy it. Spend your weekend just basking in the glow of it, and then get your game face on for Monday, because it's a big one against Texas A&M. Every single step of the way is going to be huge the rest of the way as Georgia tries to make quite a run here to close out the 2019 season. Cannot wait to cover it all with you. We'll see you Monday for Dog Nation Daily. Forum.dognation.com and dognation.com, and Connor everywhere in between, of course, on all the various programs. By the way, Dog Nation YouTube page right now, the video that we got from the press conference in the locker room, Kirby not exactly using his PG language.
# BTFD.
That's exactly right. So, Dan Mullen, sorry, Dogs own the East again. Gus Malzahn, hate it for you. Dogs on top here from Jordan-Hare Stadium, 21-14. Y'all have a great weekend. This has been the Pella Window Postgame Show.